want to recognize a number of my law enforcement friends and partners because, like most of our cases, we can't do this without the help of our state and locals. And frankly, one of the reasons we do this is to recognize one of the big reasons that we have success in these cases, which is it's their agents and officers who are the real stories and the real heroes of the day. We're going to talk to you about what we think are some real extraordinary successes, but it's because of the agencies represented by these gentlemen behind me that we have that sort of success. Behind me is Dan Salter, the Special Agent in Charge for the Dallas DEA. Gregg County Sheriff Maxie Serliano, his Chief Deputy, I think it was Chuck Williford. Is Chuck here?
He's here.
Okay. The Gregg County Judge, who's our host, Bill Stout, Sheriff Anthony Betterton of Upshur County, Captain Gary Robertson of the Upshur County, Chief Todd Hunter of the Kilgore Police Department, Chief Doug Dingler here in Longview, and we also were assisted by the U.S. Marshals who helped figure out a lot of the asset forfeiture in this case. We will answer some questions, but by our rules we have to sort of stick to the indictment, so I hope you'll respect that. We are announcing today for the citizens who live in this part of East Texas that a federal indictment has been returned by a grand jury meeting in Tyler. Earlier today, Jeremy Tidwell, his wife Shayna Tidwell were safely arrested here in Longview, as was Tidwell's brother Brian in Arlington. These defendants are charged with conspiring to distribute controlled substances, controlled substance analogs, and misbranded drugs, as well as money laundering. In the coming days, you will see them appearing in federal court. In fact, I believe Mr. and Ms. Tidwell will be in federal court this afternoon. The case, which we call Operation Pin the Tail on the Dragon, is an intentional strike formulated here in the Eastern District of Texas, along with our state and local partners, on the Tidwell drug trafficking organization, which has operated with general impunity in this area, distributing large quantities of what is commonly known as K2 or spice. Now, many people describe these substances as synthetic marijuana, but I want to say that's a very significant and gross distortion of what this poison really is. The product names listed in the indictment probably tell you all you need to know. Black Voodoo, Walking Dead, Devil's Dank, Gorilla Dro Classic, Fear and Loathing, Judgment Day, Raining Dragon, Magic Silver, Magic Gold, One Hit Wonder, Galactic Head Trip, and on and on and on. This so-called potpourri and incense, which they label it as such, is hardly that. It's designed to be smoked and to get people high and somehow beat drug screens. More specifically, though, this indictment explains that the Tidwells have operated the Glass Dragons and the Glass Dragon Superstore here in Gregg County. And while they've had nominal sales of candles and e-cigarettes, as well as assorted head shop paraphernalia, the vast amount of income, and it is vast, the defendants have earned have come through the sale of these controlled substances and analog substances. The indictment further alleges that the Tidwells have made almost $5 million, and I promise you that we will seek the forfeiture of every single one of those dollars. We're also seeking the forfeiture of various parcels of real estate, 2 airplanes and 3 vehicles, and we have either seized or filed lis pendens on all those items today. So far today, officers and agents have not just arrested the Tidwells safely, thank goodness, but they have seized what we believe to be almost $1 million in cash and bank accounts, the 2 airplanes, as I said, and the 2 vehicles, and substantial quantities of K2. We're quite confident that today's action has dealt a significant blow to this drug enterprise. Now, I started talking to you about the cooperation, and let me stop here and commend the persistence, the creativity, and the tremendous effort of the agents and officers and prosecutors involved in this project. I want to emphasize that what we have, of course, is just an indictment. There's been no proof, and these defendants are presumed innocent and are entitled to due process in every respect, and believe me, they're going to get it. But I can tell you that we have prepared in a laborious and detailed way a compelling case, and we're looking forward to presenting the evidence to a jury in East Texas here as soon as possible. Now, we spend a lot of time in our respective offices. Dan and I talk a lot about strategizing and working on combating the Mexican drug cartels. Frankly, that is my principal focus, as the cartels are a principal threat not only to our friends in Mexico, but to our own national well-being. But we cannot and we will not ignore a threat like this in our own backyard. These products, which are synthesized in overseas labs and then sprayed indiscriminately on plant material, are extremely dangerous. It is not, and I repeat that again, it is not like marijuana. K2 has dangerous psychoactive properties. It's highly addictive and can cause uncontrolled agitation, anxiety, nausea, vomiting, elevated blood pressure, tremors, seizures, hallucinations, and extremely paranoid behavior. And the police officers in these communities that I've talked about have seen it time and time again and have waited for us to come alongside them to work this case. K2 is cynically marketed as potpourri or incense, and it's become very popular because it's perceived to be legal. Again, it is not legal. And moreover, its use is extremely dangerous to the user, and it's just not worth it. People use it thinking the risk is worth it because its use will not get them in trouble with the authorities and they'll pass drug screens, but they could not be more foolish. Now, we've done a lot of work on this. Literally thousands of hours have been expended in the investigation, which involves, as I've said, agents from the Dallas Division, the DEA, and the officers from the departments represented behind me. As the U.S. Attorney, I am very pleased and honored to be included in this effort. We've got a long way to go. It often seems like, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing these press conferences where we've talked about a particular strike at this drug enterprise. It's an interminable struggle against narcotics traffickers, but I can tell you from my office and for the folks behind me, we cannot give up and we will not. The stakes are too high and the consequences of failure are simply unthinkable. So we look forward to what we hope is speedy justice for these 3 defendants, and the investigation will continue. We will find out where this stuff is being manufactured and hold them accountable as well. Now, it's my great honor to introduce to you somebody who you all know very well, a great sheriff, Maxie Serliano. Maxie.
Thank you. Hello. Welcome to our courthouse today. Today is a historic day in Gregg County. You've heard the U.S. Attorney and what his words were. Let me just say and echo what he said. There have been thousands and thousands of man-hours put in on this investigation to reach this point. And as he alluded to, the investigation is not over. This is just where we're at today. Yesterday in Longview, we had a briefing attended by many of the officers that are still out in the field, that are working right now, that have been working since early this morning. I had the opportunity to speak to them yesterday and thank them, but I want to tell you today publicly that it's our honor on behalf of County Judge Bill Stout and I to thank our partners that are here from the federal government, the federal assets that they have given to this investigation. That's our partners at the DEA, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the U.S. Marshals Service. They are here today as a commitment to keep our community safe. As local law enforcement agencies, we have struggled with regulations and enforcement of the synthetic products, the K2, those type of things has been discussed. They just changed the makeup of the product. So it's been difficult. Law enforcement administrators that are here today from Gregg County, we were meeting over the past 2 or 3 years trying to formulate a plan as to what we could do to best combat this. And it's been a difficult trip with a lot of struggles, I assure you. We have had limited access during the time, although we've had some access. And as many of you know, while the Glass Dragon used to run wide open in Longview, they took the opportunity, some enforcement avenues that were taken and moved out into the county where there were less restrictions, which provided even more of a struggle. Weekly, the county judge and I, the police chiefs, the mayors, get calls, get visits from distraught families, from concerned people in our communities that ask us to do something, and it's been very difficult. But one of the things that has reigned true is we've always provided the same message, and that message is we're going to do whatever we can to protect our community. And I think that you see that today. Earlier this year, I took the opportunity to knock on the door of the DEA Task Force Supervisor in Tyler. Gregg County, Kilgore PD, Upshur County, and other agencies make up that task force under the supervision and direction of DEA agents and the agent in charge. I had an opportunity to visit with the agent in charge, and not only did he not close the door, he opened the door for this investigation to be initiated and the results that you're hearing today. What he did was, in his concern, is formulated a plan. He got that plan approved with the DEA supervisors in Dallas, and you're going to hear from the head supervisor here in just a minute. And it was approved there. One of the things that I think is very important is that from the financial aspect, to cover the cost of the investigation, it had to be approved by headquarters in Washington. The U.S. Attorney's Office had to agree that they would become involved in the investigation and handle prosecution based on the facts and the evidence in the case. The U.S. Marshals Service agreed to help to identify and seize assets related to this investigation. The local law enforcement agencies that are represented here provided hours and hours of manpower and resources to assist our federal partners to get us to where we are today. What I believe is we have now established a path for prosecution for this type of operation. So that's the sale of these products has created a serious health concern. It's primarily used by the young people in our community. It has had a devastating effect on families and has placed significant stress on law enforcement, EMS, and hospitals that serve us. The events of today will have a positive impact on the health and safety of our citizens. While there are currently no other establishments that are operating on the level of the ones that were dealt with today, I would remind everyone again that there is an established path to prosecution. So the investigation continues, and again, let me thank everybody, both federal and local, that was involved in this investigation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Dan Salter with the Drug Enforcement Administration. Today's a victory for East Texas. We stand here with our partners proud of what these officers, has been mentioned, spent thousands of hours investigating this Tidwell drug trafficking organization, much like a Mexican drug trafficking organization. They are, let there be no doubt, they are making a very good profit on the backs of addiction. We have, there's mothers and fathers, family members, loved ones that are suffering loss of children and young adults who abuse this synthetic cannabinoids. It grieves us because we live in these same communities. We have the same relationships through our churches and our civic groups that you have, and it's concerned us when we see this happening in our small communities. It's an honor to stand here and represent the drug enforcement today and these men behind me. What you don't see are the warriors that are day in and day out on the streets, keeping you safe and keeping our communities safe. And that's something that I can't stress how proud I am for these guys. They'll be long in the hours tonight wrapping up this case. As the sheriff said, this is not over. Let me stress that we consider this poison. In any other organization or group that wants a nickname that we'll proudly give them, like Pin the Tail on the Dragon, we will target, and we will, if you are abusing and violating the law, you lose you stand a great chance of losing your freedoms that this great country promises you. It's not a threat, it's a commitment that we have as community members and people, citizens in the same community. We love this country, we love this state. We want to make sure that we keep our streets and our neighborhoods safe. Again, we have, as been explained, this investigation was very detailed. It's not a simple investigation. It's not like a heroin or a cocaine or methamphetamine case. These analogs that comprise and make up the synthetic cannabinoids are oftentimes changed and manipulated to a point where they may not be illegal. So when it looks like we started this investigation, the conspiracy goes back to 2012. But it takes a lot of man hours and it takes a lot of work in our labs to determine that this ingredients that we're seizing and we bought were illegal, and they were. And consequently, based on great work from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Texas, we were able to obtain these indictments and these seizure warrants. It's not about what we seize, an asset. It's not. That's nice. It's about taking bad people, taking drugs off the street, and putting bad people in jail. So my commitment to this community is strong and committed. We're not done. We'll continue. We'll pursue and do what we do. And I've got the best friends in the world standing behind me, and we are all committed to what you see today, and hopefully maybe we'll drive and go away. But if not, we'll still be around. Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you. And Maxie covered some of the things I wanted to mention today, but as a follow-up, this is a great day for Longview. Some 3 years ago, I think we were one of the first cities in the area to introduce an ordinance to remove K2 from our streets. Direct result of exactly what Maxie said. How many times we've had parents, come to our homes, meet with us at City Hall, talk to us about the pains they're going through with their children and how addictive this stuff is. And while we thought we had won a battle, we lost the war because they simply went down the street and changed the formulation. I do want to say today that I'm in contact right now with State Representative Chris Patty, also Senator Kevin Eltife. As we approach the next Texas legislative session, we will be introducing bills to eradicate synthetic drugs finally from the state of Texas. And we call on all of you to contact your representatives to please, let's don't lose it in the dust like happened in the last legislative session. Let's get this done, and let's get synthetic drugs off our streets. Thank you to everybody for making Longview a safer place tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would make a short, brief comment regarding what's taking place here today, and that is to the people that have come forward and made this an issue and a project for me as an administrative officer of this county to do something about what's been going on around here for way too long. And I want to personally thank the law enforcement agencies that were involved in this. Without them, this couldn't have happened. Without our federal partners, this couldn't have happened. And I want to reach out to those people that I've talked to over the years that have come to me and asked and questioned, why can't you do something? And when we put this formulation together, we couldn't talk about it because we wanted to make sure when we did it, it was going to stick. And I would read in the newspaper, and I would thank Phil, and I would thank Rick Brock with the Longview News Journal, and continue to press home the point that there's a problem here. Why can't we do something about it? And we were all hearing it loud and clear. But when we did it, we wanted to do it right. And these gentlemen behind me, and the gentlemen and the ladies in this room that are in law enforcement made that happen. And on behalf of Gregg County, I thank you. This is a great day for Gregg County. It's a great day for the people that have suffered from this poison. It's a great day for the generations that are going to be growing up in this community, that we can hopefully make this a drug-free community with the synthetics and all these other wild things that are taking place with the generations coming before us, because it's clearly a poison. So on behalf of Gregg County, thank law enforcement, thank the federal prosecutor, and thank you all for what you did.
Thanks, Judge. We can entertain some questions now.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
There's a store a couple of doors down from the last year consumer store advertising that they were selling incense and hookah. Once I told them what was happening at the Last Dragon, they mysteriously close. The Glass Dragon on Pine Tree Road has a sign that says we're going to open in 2 to 3 days. What can law enforcement and specifically what can this community do to try to fight this problem from this point? Because this is a big step. Obviously, it's
Right.
not over.
Right. Well, whether they're open in 2 or 3 days, I guess we'll see, because they have appearances in court, and they'll be under the supervision of the judge and a probation officer, and one of the conditions of release is that you not violate the law while you're on pretrial release. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually open up and operate in the same fashion that you all have seen in these last few years. That being said, I'm delighted to hear about the store next door. That's one of the reasons why we do this, to put a light on activity that folks maybe are ambiguous about. There's nothing to be ambiguous about. One thing they did refer to, though, which is true, one of the challenges in this is more so than other drugs, is the chemical analysis of the substances being sold. Whether these folks really are involved, they buy it from other folks who are actually manufacturing it, but there is a concerted effort to chemically alter these substances to stay outside the controlled schedules that DEA establishes by law. In this instance, they weren't clever enough, and we are quite confident that what we're charging will not only stick, but will hold them accountable for a long time. As far as the community, and for, I commend the city of Longview. This is happening all over Texas, where counties and cities are struggling with ordinances on how to combat this. I would suggest that when you see this, I would be happy to take your calls to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tyler, Texas. It's 903-590-1400. We don't mind being a clearinghouse for tips like this. Our objective is to not only hold the Tidwells accountable for the crimes that they are alleged to have committed, but also to indicate to other people, just as Dan talked about, we're not going to stop. The Tidwells are not the icing on the cake. They're just the beginning of our efforts to address this growing threat to East Texas. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, sir.
Is there any investigation into whether or not Glass Dragon or the Tidwells were supplying other people?
Yeah, as far as other targets, I'm not at liberty to discuss that, but if you get a chance to look at the indictment, which I guess we do not have copies of it here. I apologize about that. You can look on Pacer. The copies will be unsealed after the court appearance, which I think is going on right now. You'll see as you read that indictment that we obviously understand that things are coming from California and Florida. That's where the stuff is being shipped to the Tidwells, for example. You don't have to be a DEA agent to figure out, well, we'd love to find out who those people are. And that's what our efforts will be. Whether they are also wholesaling it to other customers here, I'm not at liberty to discuss.
Mr. Bales, Philip Williams, representing the Gilmer Mirror,
Yes, sir.
4 other newspapers. Could you talk a little bit about Upshur County's role in this?
Right. Well, one of the things that happened once we decided to get involved in the case, you have to analyze what is the extent of the activity. What was obvious to us is the anecdotal evidence. I mean, we would hear about people lining up outside the door of the Glass Castle before it even opened. And there was also information that people were coming from a 4-state area to buy from the Glass Dragon. One of the people that helped us in this case was the Arkansas Attorney General's office. So part of the investigative process was for the agents and the officers working on this case to go back in time, and a lot of the activity had been done in Upshur County. Some of the enforcement activity had been done in Upshur County, and so they pulled together police reports. And one of the things that you would find in many instances, people would be arrested for driving while intoxicated. There might be an accident. There would be all kinds of activity, and they would find Glass Castle material there at the scene. And so those substances had been seized, and maybe it was beyond the capacity of the lab, or they were never submitted. We went back and found those investigative reports and reanalyzed those substances to find out if at that time they were scheduled according to the DEA schedules or illegal analogs. And so Upshur County and a lot of the agencies in that area were very helpful in sort of screening that investigative material where they felt like, you know, the reason this happened was, you know, the guy was high on, you know, K2. And then, of course, we had to determine if that was really true and did it come from the Glass Castle,
So a lot
as
of
an example.
Glass Castle, I think you mean Dragon.
I'm sorry, Glass Dragon.
And, so then, as far as Upshur County's involvement is, that a lot of the activity, that is arrests related to what they were selling, had been done in Upshur County. And Glass Dragon materials were found at crime scenes. Reports from Upshur County were looked up, and he said Upshur County was very helpful.
Yes, sir.
And the investigators participated as well.
Yeah, investigators participate too. They're part of the task force and they're very helpful.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Skylar Gallup with
Hi.
LTV. Hi. I was wondering, can you elaborate on what might have sparked this investigation,
Yeah.
as well as how long you all, it seems like this has been an elaborate investigation involving many agencies. How long have you guys been working towards?
We've been working for several months. You know, Sheriff Soriano talked about, they've been looking at this for a couple of years at least. But to be honest with you, the U.S. Attorney's Office was kind of the last man on the bus, which is not to say that we weren't interested. We were just sort of, you have to get kind of a critical mass to do a case like this. I attend meetings all the time, get briefings about this spice business, but frankly, you have to sort of have a certain substance to the case before we can get involved. We think we are very good at understanding, identifying, and then attacking drug organizations. And a lot of convenience stores, I mean, you all know this because they're in your communities, they sell small packages of this behind at the convenience store, and you would hear stories about people wigging out after using it. And we were cataloging that, but frankly, this was one of the first opportunities that we had to find somebody who had sort of gone whole hog into this business. And the Glass Dragon folks, quite frankly, had done that. And, you know, the folks that have lived in the Longview area are familiar with what they were doing. You know, they would act like they were a candle shop, and, you know, they've got their ways to try to get around the idea that people are not going to supposedly consume this material. But we think the evidence will be quite compelling that they knew exactly what they were doing, and there is no mistake about selling a Schedule I controlled substance. So, you know, the sheriff had done a good job, the police chiefs had done a good job, and frankly, the DA said, we got to do something about this, and I agreed, and so we opened an investigation.
If found guilty, what punishment would it be?
Well, they've been charged with money laundering, which carries up to 20 years in prison. The drug guidelines on this are more complicated. You have to do a conversion table, you know, depending on how many grams, and then you convert that to marijuana. And I hate doing that because it sort of equates this stuff with marijuana, but actually it's a lot more potent and is actually punished in a more significant fashion. But even now, as you can expect, the substances that were seized in today's enforcement activity will be weighed, evaluated, and if they are illegal, because some of this stuff, frankly, is not scheduled, because we're constantly fighting this chemical, you know, battle with the folks who make this stuff in China and other countries. We'll determine whether they should be held accountable for that as well, and all that will sort of translate into a sentencing range based on the federal sentencing guidelines. But it's a fair statement to say that they're looking up to 20 years. I don't know that they'll get 20 years, but they're looking at significant prison time. And there's all kinds of other applications. If you know much about federal sentencing, you have to decide who's a leader. One of the reports that I'm getting is that they found guns in one of the residences. Mr. Tidwell is a convicted felon. That's a whole nother set of problems for him that we'll be investigating. And so to guess what they might get if they were convicted is a little premature.
What is the total number of residences and establishments that y'all rated?
I have to defer to Dan about that. I know we were looking at a couple of airplane hangars. We're looking at the warehouses that they were using to sell.
About 5 locations,
Yeah.
and with some in Upshur County and Gray County as well.
Right.
Not including the 3 businesses.
No, I would probably about 6 in counting the 3 businesses. Yeah.
Okay, understood.
Good question. Any other questions?
So there were 3 businesses rated today?
We hit all the store locations, yes, and then their residents as well. And then they own property in Colorado, and We have seizure warrants on things in that were signed, you know, that are part of this case, and I believe the agents, I'm not sure of the outcome of that enforcement activity, but we were tasked to seize some items in Colorado as well.
Mr. Salter said that there were about 6 locations in all, some in Gray and Upshur that were raided today, and I was a little unclear. How many of those were businesses?
The three businesses here, airport, and a couple of residences. And then also, as Mr. Bales mentioned, in Colorado, all of which will be in the indictment because many of the assets are identified in seizure warrants in the indictment that you get a copy of.
Yeah, I encourage you to get the indictment, and I'm sorry that we don't have copies. We were a little bit behind the power curve as far as my press information officer, but because due process requires us to identify those with specificity, you'll see exactly what we have.
Location in Colorado has yet to be searched.
No, it's been
Has
searched.
been,
It has
yes,
been
sir.
searched, okay.
Right.
And can you provide any detail on the amount of evidence seized today, weight, anything? I know you guys are probably still processing.
I don't know. There was a considerable amount of this product that was in the stores when they went to it, and I don't know the outcome of that. I just know that they had received deliveries recently.
Do you know the brand name that it was being sold under?
It's under numerous names.
Numerous names. Some of the names that I gave you would be, you know, they label it.
300 to 500 pounds would be a conservative guess.
Thank you.
Right.
Is there a way, if it's coming from foreign countries like China, is there a way for the U.S. government to stop it from being imported from China over to here?
Yeah, this stuff is considered, when it's controlled, it could be a misbranded drug. Our customs folks could seize this, but as you can imagine, it's rarely labeled correctly, and it's essentially smuggled into the country, and then once it gets to the, a lot of it comes in compartments. In other words, the plant substance might be here in the U.S., and they sell the chemicals, and then it's actually sprayed and packaged here in the U.S. The DEA's had some success in breaking up those sort of operations. What was happening here is the Tidwells were already receiving the packaged product already doctored up with the chemicals and labeled as such.
You mentioned
Yes, sir.
customers of these stores from 4 states. Can you explain why people would be coming from other states to?
Yeah. Well, the Tidwells, you know, really put themselves out there as a purveyor of this stuff. And I think they had probably some of the most significant inventory in East Texas. And this stuff, like most drug work, is word of mouth. And so whether people thought that it had a better kick or what, but to be honest with you, there were some horrific things that happened for people traveling after they'd already ingested this stuff. But you know, I don't know. You know, why do people do anything involving you know, illegal narcotics?
When and where did the federal grand jury indict these 3 folks?
I think the grand jury met a couple of weeks ago, but I could stand corrected on that. The indictments were sealed, and of course, quite a bit of work went into today's enforcement activity.
So they'd already been indicted before today?
Typically, that's what we do, and we did it in this case as well.
You all expect any more arrests coming from this?
Well, as Dan and Sheriff Sirleano talked about, the investigation continues. We always hope folks cooperate after they've been arrested. I don't know if the Tidwells will or not, but there are a lot of leads left, and I have no idea what the agents have recovered in the stores that might open new avenues of investigation, but we'll certainly be analyzing that and taking it to its logical end.
Can you tell us some about where Mr. and Mrs. Tidwell were arrested locally, I believe you said?
Yes, sir.
Were they arrested at their home?
I think they were out and about in their vehicles, actually, and somehow I think they were together, actually, at the time of their arrests.
That's correct.
Were any employees of the stores arrested?
No, not yet.
And what of the people that ingest the substances? Are there any charges to be brought against them, or is that something that you all follow?
You know, I don't know. We're not doing that. That's not a part of the project. It's not good. It's not legal to be in possession of controlled substances. But this is not inconsistent with the way we normally do our work. In the federal level, We're looking at business organizations who sell these narcotics and rarely, if ever, are involved with prosecuting users, and we're not in this case.
You said Jeremy Tidwell's brother, and I'm sorry I didn't get his first name, was arrested in Mesquite
Actually, Arlington.
in Arlington?
Yes, and I can't
Was
remember.
they all three were arrested today, is that?
Brian Tidwell was his name, yes, sir. Thank you,
I'm
Dennis.
sorry, the first name?
Brian,
B-R-Y-A-N?
B-R-I-A-N.
And does he keep residence there, or does he live in East Texas?
I don't know what he was doing in Arlington
But
today.
he lives here.
Yes, he works at the, as, part of the operational activity.
And they all three were arrested today, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a very good documentary CNN did last night, matter of fact, called Deadly High. It answers a lot of your questions about the myth of cannabinoids. And it's real life because it's in fact local.
Do we have any knowledge of how many deaths have occurred here in Gregg County? This might be directed more towards Sheriff Sylviano, but do we have any knowledge of any deaths related to the use of this substance?
Well, we know that there have been deaths in the community, and we have that information, some of that information, if we believe it was related to particularly where they obtained the substance, has been gathered and has been sent to the DEA to be included in the investigation. To give you specifics, no.
Can't give you specifics on what he was saying, but I can tell you it's destroyed lives in this community.
Time for one more question. All right then, we'll be hanging around for a little while, but thank you very much for your interest, and appreciate y'all.
Thank you.